I got the best of all worlds. I went to
Creepy is
Harding
currently
and then
inaudible.
Apple Valley.
We don't count that, the Twin Cities either.
All right, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, from the Civic Media World Headquarters in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. Welcome to the Todd Allbaugh Show across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and worldwide on the Civic Media app, along with Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer. We come to you on this Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, a special edition of the show. Normally, we start off by saying it's a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Unfortunately, particularly for our neighbors to the west in Minnesota and Minneapolis, it is a tragic day. We come to you, of course, if you haven't had a radio or a television on, there was a tragedy this morning in the Twin Cities. Want to get to what we know so far. At least 2 children were killed in this shooting in Minneapolis during a Catholic school mass to mark the first week of school. According to police, the shooter, who is dead, was identified as Robert Westman. Multiple law enforcement officials briefed on the matter told CNN and other sources children ages 6 to 14 are being treated for injuries at area hospital, with some in critical condition. Officials say the shooter fired through windows of the church at people sitting in the pews. At least 17 people are known to be injured, and perhaps more, as details are still coming in. It is alleged, according to police, that the shooter barricaded at least some of the church doors from the outside using 2x4s, so as trying to keep victims contained in the church. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has addressed the tragedy briefly on social media, saying, quote, "We will get through this together. Hug your kids close," unquote. President Donald Trump is ordering all American flags on public buildings to be flown at half staff until sunset on Sunday in honor of the victims of today's mass shooting in Minnesota, per a proclamation released by the White House. An enormously tragic day, a tough issue, and here to discuss it with us, our normal Wednesday guest, host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow every morning from 6 until 9 on Civic Media, Pat Kreitlow, who joins us from his studios at Lake Wissota, and also Trygve Olsen, now a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project based outside of Washington, D.C. And welcome back to the program, although it's been much too long, the host of Native Roots Radio every evening here on Civic Media and across Minnesota as well, at least on our airwaves. He plays from 8 until 9, Robert Pilot. Gentlemen, I appreciate all of you being here. I just want to go around the table briefly, and Pat Kreitlow, start us off, and your thoughts today.
My thoughts are much less important, but the thoughts I think that are worth sharing are those of the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, who said what I feel perfectly. Do not say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying, he said. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. Thoughts and prayers has become an empty expression, and rightly so, because it symbolizes an unwillingness to do anything else. And Mayor Fry has been one of those very vocal about the need to get guns off the streets, to get guns out of the hands of people who may not necessarily be deserving of them because of mental incapacities or other threatening behavior. It's why we should have red flag laws, but we have politicians in Wisconsin that have fought that. So as much as this is currently about the victims, it is as well. It is never too soon to say there were things that could have been done to prevent this, and they were not.
We're going to hear from Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, in just a couple of minutes. But Robert Pilot, you live in the Twin Cities. You've talked eloquently on your program about gun violence that has affected the Native communities, in particular in that area. Your thoughts on today's tragedy?
Well, thanks so much for having me on your show, Todd. I appreciate it. One of the things that I'd like to really mention is the day before today, there was a bunch of shootings in Minneapolis too, where 3 were killed. And I just prayers out to the people that are working at these hospitals because I don't know what kind of trauma they have each day, bringing in bodies that are very injured or dead. I just want to throw prayers out to them, and I really appreciate what Pat brought up with that. We need to talk about this, and I think the Republicans love to say, "Have some respect. Don't talk about this." This is the time to talk about it right now and get some change in it because this is more than ridiculous. This has been going on. This has been normalized, and we need to do something about that. And we really need to really talk about this. So, Todd, thanks again for having me on.
A pleasure is ours, and thank you for taking the time on this tragic but very, very important day. I want to hear more from Robert in particular because you've really spoken on your show on Native Roots Radio to what we can do, moving forward, how we address this, and it's important to unfortunately mark today. But I also think if we're ever going to change anything in this state in this country, we have to look at real things that we can do legislatively, but beyond that as well. So I want to come back to Robert. Trygve Olson joining us from outside Washington, D.C. Trygve, your first thoughts. You're all muted, by the way, my friend.
Unmuted. I'm sorry about that. I was turning up my volume. Yeah, I mean, I grew up just outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul. My sister lives in St. Paul. Her kids go to Catholic schools, right? And I just think I'm a gun owner, but we need to have a serious conversation. It's always the same thing over and over again. And the truth of the matter is you can believe in the Second Amendment. You can believe in the right for people to own guns. But we also have to have a conversation if, in this case, it appears, I don't know the exact details. I just was looking at the news, though. It appears that it was a younger person, similar weapons as always. And, there's nothing wrong if someone turns 18 and buys 3 ARs and 6,000 rounds of ammo for somebody from the government to come and say, hey, buddy, are you doing okay? Are you going to the range? And going to the range and saying, hey, have you seen this guy? And we should be able to have an honest conversation about it. And quite frankly, people who like to hunt, who like to own guns, people who like to go to the range need to lead in that conversation. And I agree completely. This isn't about thoughts and prayers. It needs to be about honest conversations. And it needs to start with people who own guns and believe in the Second Amendment.
We're covering breaking news at this hour this morning. At least 17 people have injured. 2 children have been killed. The shooter also took his own life. There's conflicting reports about whether it was in the back of this church in Minneapolis or whether it was in the parking lot. But regardless, the shooter is also dead. At this hour, Robin Westman, who reportedly is a 23-year-old who may have been connected tangentially either from the school or from the church. I want to hear Pat. We're joined by Pat Kreitlow of Mornings of Pat Kreitlow, Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio, and Trygve Olson of the Lincoln Project. Pat spoke or touched on this earlier. Let's hear from the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry himself. The first cut, Zombers, if we could please, earlier this morning.
These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country.
That was the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, this morning on this shooting. Gentlemen, I'm struck by this. I'm not gonna say the city is actually outside of Wisconsin. not in Minnesota, have very close friends. They send their kids to Catholic school, and they posted pictures on their social 2 days ago of their own kids going to first day of Catholic school, and you think it could have been them. It could have been them. Lots to get to in this show. In a twist of irony, Democratic Senator of Wisconsin, State Senator Calder Royce, amongst those about an hour ago, just up the street at the Capitol here in Wisconsin, introducing new legislation to prohibit concealed carry of firearms on college and university campuses in Wisconsin. That has come up before in this state and has not been taken up under Republican control. And this comes on the heels of new reporting this morning as well from Kelly Meyerhofer of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, a great in-depth piece here. You'll recall we covered this, unfortunately, this spring, a murder-suicide at UW-Platteville in southwest Wisconsin. Details coming out now that the young woman in this case who did who committed the crime, who murdered a fellow student and then took her own life, there were several signs, everything from not getting her teaching certificate to weird behavior, odd behavior that the roommate reported, to being withdrawn. What are we missing as a society where it's not just legislation? Although I'm, like Trigby is saying, as a owner of hunting weapons, I'm all for red flag laws, waiting periods. I don't think people should be able to have an AR-15. That's just my opinion. But Scott McFarland on CBS this morning, who is a great reporter, who's covered January 6th, who's covered the course, he brought this up, and I will start with you, Pat. We'll get the other two on the other side. He brought this up, Scott McFarland at CBS, that of these mass shootings that he has covered, many are committed with firearms that were obtained at least in the home legally and would not have been restricted by red flag laws, would not have been restricted by some of these things, and they tend to happen more often with young white males, meaning 35 or under. What do we gather from that, if anything, Pat Kreitlow?
Well, we gather that we have essentially coddled a perverted view of the Second Amendment that makes people, especially young men, feel like it's inevitable that guns are everywhere and that they should learn them, and that is an acceptable way to act out in their frustrations and then in their behavior, because they don't see anybody taking the issue seriously. And I don't mean personally, we obviously all are taking this issue seriously. I mean people in positions of power that should know better. We can only say so many times that we have to address the gun culture and the criminal penalties and the widespread availability of these weapons. But it really isn't going to change until we can confront the people who, by the way, tomorrow or next week are going to put out another press release saying that Democrat Party has tried to take away your guns again. And they need to be confronted more forcefully with this simple question. What the hell? What the hell is, how many more children have to die for you to take seriously that this is a solvable problem that you refuse to do? You would rather take the side of the mass killers. And that is in no way hyperbole, Todd. When Bill Berrien, candidate for governor, says he wants to get rid of the permits for concealed carry, that is literally taking the side of mass shooters over the lives of our children. And we need to stop cowering about that and say that to their faces until they decide that maybe we should and could come up with a better policy.
Trigby Olson and I are both former Republicans. Trigby has worked at some of the highest levels of the Republican Party. When we come back, I want Trigby's answer on, is what Pat just said even possible in today's MAGA Trump-controlled world? And Robert Pilot has spoken eloquently on Native Roots Radio about taking care of our younger generation and whose responsibility is it to go beyond legislation and to work within families to solve this crisis. It's a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show. You're listening to Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Madison's real news and great conversation.
All right,
Great
boys.
conversations, gentlemen.
All All right. I've given you food for thought. Take it from there.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Very good.
See you
Thanks,
later.
Pat.
Give more time
Appreciate
for
it.
Robert.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Todd, do you mind if I bring up the Democrats' failure to this?
No,
And
not
what
at
I'm going
all.
to do is going to kind of talk about how in the heck can this person that's running for president get all this stuff done where our Democrats can't even get us universal health care.
Yeah.
I think we need to fight fire with fire. If we ever have another legitimate election, we need to push the Democrats to take care of this and not play nice and things like the Second Amendment that were written when there were muskets.
Right. No, let's we'll
So
come back and pick up.
That's been
Go ahead.
kind of my angle lately too, because we really have to push the Democrats to get going here, and they're not.
You want to come back, Trivia? You can pick up just on Pat's point about is there any hope of actual meaningful legislation done in any chance to get that passed in this era? And then Robert, you can pick up on that. Can you stay one more segment, Robert, after the bottom of the hour?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. Because I really want to get into and Trivia. Robert's talked about this. I really appreciate. Is it your daughter who's the producer a lot? That she's on the show with you a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys had a great conversation on one of those shows where you talked about the fact that, in the Native community, which, when my former boss, Dale Schultz, was on the State Tribal Relations Committee in the legislature, that was one of the most impactful and important things of my life because, we should be to pay more attention, in my opinion, about our Native cultures and the legacy. And I think within the Native community, there's so much, if it's followed, as you have said, where you can address young people and nurture them and mentor them. And I think that's important. So, all right, here we go. Back to a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Now 22 past the hour of 2 o'clock on Wednesday, August 27th. We are covering the latest, unfortunately, mass shooting, this time in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. Here's what we know so far. At least 2 children were killed in a shooting today at a Catholic school during Mass on the first week of school, according to police. The shooter is dead, allegedly took his own life. He was identified as Robin Westman, a 23-year-old. From the Minneapolis area, may have had connections to the church as well. Children as young as 6 up to 14 are being treated for injuries at area hospitals, some in critical condition. Officials say the shooter fired through the windows of the church at people sitting and praying in the pews. At least 17 in total are injured from the church, and that he had barricaded the doors, at least some of the doors, with 2x4s to keep people inside. We are joined this half hour here by Robert Pilot, the host of Native Roots Radio, who lives in the Twin Cities, and also Trygve Olson, senior advisor on the Lincoln Project, who grew up just across the Mississippi River in River Falls, has family in the Twin Cities area as well. He joins us via StreamYard from Washington, D.C. Guys, before we get back into the discussion, and if folks want to call in, please do. We'll take your thoughts, 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app or on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. Before we get back into the discussion, I want to take one more cut. This is from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey this morning at the press conference after the mass shooting.
There are no words that can capture the horror and the evil of this unspeakable act. Children are dead. There are families that have a deceased child. You cannot put into words the gravity, the tragedy, or the absolute pain of this situation.
The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, today. Trigby Olson, I want to pick up where many thanks to our colleague Pat Kreitlow, host of host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News Radio every morning from 6 until 9, who joined us at the top of the show. Trigby, Pat, of course, a former Democratic state senator of Wisconsin. You and I used to be part of the Republican Party. Both of us have since left that party. You've worked for people all the way up, not just in the state of Wisconsin, but people like John McCain out in Washington. You know our former party well. To Pat's point that the Republican Party, the Republican MAGA voters need to wake up at some point and support reasonable legislation like waiting periods, like flag laws. Is that even politically possible in the era we find ourselves in, Trigby?
Probably not.
Yeah. That's just the reality,
Probably
right?
not. It's just the reality.
As long as you have, and I think this, and I don't want to go too far down and make it all about politics, because there are people grieving at this hour for loved ones they have lost, but also we can't ignore that the importance of these elections coming up in 2026 if we want real change, right, Trigby?
I'm gonna be honest. I suspect it will become the pretext to saying that Texas National Guardsmen need to be out on the streets in Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's what I suspect it will be. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there's the National Guard now out here in DC. And I was taking Ula, my oldest daughter, who some of you met on the show. I was taking her to see, she's a big women's basketball fan. I don't know how she's gotten into it, but she's totally into it. So she wanted to go see the Washington Mystics. They're over in Anacostia, which is a really bad neighborhood. And I tell you, dropping your 16-year-old off in that neighborhood, I was a little nervous about it, but she was going with a friend. No National Guard there, but I had to drive down Constitution to get there, and the National Guard's out on the mall. Yeah. It's like, they're not even where the crime is. I mean, right. It's just ridiculous. So I that's what I really think it will become the pretext for.
Unfortunately, I agree with you,
sadly
Robert.
To say, that's the way autocrats work.
And Trigby, for those that don't know, has fought autocracies and autocrats in Eastern Europe, and is the only person I know is actually banned from Russia by Vladimir Putin himself. So that's he wears that badge of courage. Robert Pilot, you live in Minneapolis. You live in the Twin Cities area. Again, your legislation obviously needed, and I don't know all the laws in Minnesota as well as you do, but we think over here in Wisconsin, we think, well, Minnesota is a bluer state, has had a Democratic legislature and of course Tim Walz, Democratic governor, and still with those laws in the book, this tragedy happens today.
Well, yeah, and let's be clear, the further away you get from tall buildings, the redder it gets, and so thank goodness land doesn't vote, but we're just here in the Twin Cities as blue, where most people live. I agree with Mr. Olson when he said that this is going to be a precursor for we're on the chopping block here for the Trump administration to bring the National Guard in too, and troops, just because of George Floyd and all those things that have happened in the last 5 years. And it was interesting. Kristi Noem made a press conference, or not a press conference, but a tweet or something very early on. And so the precursor of her coming, and I got to just remind everyone too that's listening that Kristi Noem cannot be in any of the 11 tribes. She's been banished from all the 11 tribes in her state. So it's illegal for her to be in any of those places, especially after she said that we're all drug dealers and part of the cartel. I just wanted to throw that out there too. One of the things that really concerns me is this next upcoming election. If we can get the Democrats back into power, we need to push them to do things like this, because again, I'm sitting here watching this illiterate orange person do all these things where we have smarter Democrats, hopefully, that could maybe possibly, why don't we have national health care? Why don't we have these things that we could easily do, take care of our people?
Robert Pilot, host of Up North, of Native Roots Radio, Trigby Olson, Lincoln Project. Come back, Farm News Report next. We'll continue to discuss this tragedy in Minneapolis on the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Your calls next as well. Stay with us. Great job, Mr. Zummers. Great job, gentlemen. We'll come back. Do you want to say a little bit more on the political side, Robert? Do you have more things you want to talk about there in terms of democratic policies, or?
Well, right now we're at a 50. I think the Senate's one vote to the majority here, the Minnesota Senate, and I think the legislature is even. But we have elections coming up, so because of the assassination of one of our leaders
Right,
here and her
right.
husband, and
That's a sad but great point.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we don't know where that's going to lie when it comes to what the numbers are, but you see what happened in Iowa.
Right, right. Yeah, the big victory there.
Yeah. So I think the
Oh, wait.
Republicans are afraid of that. That's why they're
Sure.
gerrymandering, doing everything they can.
Well, let's come back and pick up there a little bit. Trigby, you could kind of talk about what you're seeing and your focus groups and polling and stuff at Lincoln Project and Lincoln Institute Democracy on trends. Are people getting this? Do they want change? And then I really want Robert to share with us this what he's talked about in his program about native cultures and nurturing and how, I mean, you guys spoke eloquently how I think it was your daughter said, look, some of this is on us that we haven't taken it on to really nurture people, and how do we get back to that? I think that's so important, and it doesn't, and I think that is, it transcends native culture. It should, it's important. It begins there. I think native culture does it better than anybody else, or has in the past, but we all can learn, should be learning from that, in my opinion, and applying that, because what the heck has changed from these shooters that are 30. I mean, not too many guys 55 years old like me going out and doing this. So what is it that changed culturally that it's all these young people? Is it the anger? Is it what is it? I just think that's an important discussion to have.
Well, part of it is that white people are going to be outnumbered here in 20 years, and
Right?
and a lot of these people can't get dates,
Handle it.
and well, they can't get dates, they can't get good jobs. I mean, there's more women in college than there is men, and that switched, what, 10, 15 years ago.
Mhm.
So what are the men are unmasculated in a lot of ways with their who they are, and again, that's why you see somebody 21 to 35 being depressed and shooting a bunch of people for no reason.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you both, the thoughtful discussion. I just think this is a healthier, better way for our listeners to process this with thoughtful but honest discussions, rather than just me coming on and my fist to the sky and yelling. Not that I do a lot of that, but
Are you on 2 hours?
yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. I love Madison, by the way. I'd be
Well,
living
Robert,
in
you
Madison.
gotta. Well, we should set it up. And come down and you could do like an hour of my show with me, and then have your show from here.
It was
He's done a
funny.
show from here before, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done the show many times from there, right? Because I was a legislator for Ho Chunk Nation, so I would
That's
be
right,
in
yeah.
Madison, and then I just bring my laptop and my headset and do the show from there. No one was there when I did it.
Right.
Or I shouldn't say not no one, but it was hardly any. And I talked to Sage a little bit.
Oh, cool.
And two, I don't know, are you just on air, or do you do the advertising and things like that, or?
We do. We're over the air broadcast, and then we're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter as
No,
well.
I meant, physically go out there and do, I mean, because I'm a one person show when it comes to
Right.
our station. I mean, I go out and get the ads myself and things
Oh
like
yeah, it's kind of a combination. We have a sales team that works on some of that,
Right,
but there's been a
right.
couple
30
of people.
seconds.
All right, here we go.
Oop.
Same music coming back in.
Sure, that's fine. Thanks. back to a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network for Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. Now 35 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. We are covering the breaking news out of the Twin Cities today. Minneapolis, specifically in our friends and neighbors to our west in Minnesota. Here is what we know so far. At least 2 children are known so far to have been killed in a shooting in Minneapolis during a Catholic school mass to mark the first week of school. Officials say the shooter fired through windows at people sitting in the pews, some on their knees in prayer, injuring at least 17. Authorities will be holding a news conference shortly to update that. And as long as we can monitor that, perhaps we can bring folks some of that if it's possible. The shooter, who is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, was identified as Robert Westman, according to law enforcement. And in a twist of cruel irony, being reported now that Annunciation Catholic School, where this all happened, it was a church connected to the Catholic school, started the school year with the theme, quote, "A future filled with hope," unquote, based on a verse in the book of Jeremiah. Certainly our friends and neighbors in the Twin Cities, particularly Annunciation Catholic School, are going to need all of us to be sending our prayers and good vibes for some hope, because many of whom are not going to be feeling that today. Joining us to discuss this in greater depth, co-host of Native Roots Radio, which can be heard every evening here on the Civic Media Radio Network from 8 until 9, Robert Pilot, and also Trygve Olson, former Republican like myself, now a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project, joins us from his home outside of Washington, D.C. Robert Pilot lives in the Twin Cities. Gentlemen, again, thank you very much for joining us on this tough day. Gary Tipler, watching on Facebook, odd that you're not odd, but coincidental, Gary, you would ask this. He says it'd be great if there would be a meet and greet event with Robert Pilot sometime. Well, we're going to work on that, Robert. Maybe do our shows together sometime, and because you guys do a great show every evening, and I think it's so important to hear from Native voices, because it is a very, very important part of Wisconsin history, but American history as well.
Yeah, thank you. We're prehistory, so I appreciate that. We talk a little bit about, our mental health, our spirituality as Native people, and to remind our listeners, or your listeners, Todd, that we've had our boarding schools where people have had their identities stolen from them, and what's really been exciting as being a former high school teacher and having an all Native homeroom and being really connected with the Twin Cities, and especially St. Paul, where I live, with the children. I see an uptake in our young ones really gravitating to their Native culture and who they are, and really trying to find out, where there's been a couple generations, including my generation, where we are hiding out. We don't want to be out and about. We don't want to say we're Native. And just to put a lot of things in perspective, I was a junior in high school when we were able to practice our own religion legally in this country. So
Wow.
I'm only 64. Well,
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty old, but I feel
Well,
young.
not to me, not to a 55-year-old. Trygve is even a year older than me. So.
Yeah. But to put those things in perspective, and being able to really, have your auntie and have your uncle and have people help you find out who you are. It's so important. I think we all need to grasp that. And I think a lot of people, the colonized people here, do not realize that they were in a tribe at one time, maybe 1,000 years ago. They had felt the same way, where they were connected to the earth and plants and the sun and the earth, so we all are connected. And you see the medicine wheel, and that means white people, red people, yellow people, and black people all come together sometime. And that's a prophecy, and hopefully someday in my lifetime we'll get closer to that again.
If you'd be so very kind, Robert, talk to us a little bit about what you've talked about on Native Roots Radio with your daughter, when you had these tragic shootings, gun violence that touched specifically, as you reported, Native on Native violence within your community there. And you talked really eloquently about It's not just legislation, although that's
Mhm.
important, but it really gets back to becoming connected as human beings within families, right?
Oh, absolutely, and I kinda just touched a little bit about that, but it is reaching out to somebody that's native, and, in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis specifically, there's, the largest, indigenous, urban community in the country with over 75,000 people living in Minneapolis and, 115 different tribes, recognized there, and I got that information from Minneapolis Public Schools, so I imagine too, St. Paul is very similar. um I hate to take the cliche of "it takes a village," but really it takes a village to raise our kids and to speak out and when they're not doing good, to reach out and find out what they're not doing, no matter if you are blood or not. It's just that we are such a small community where it's less than 3%, and we have to really stick together and stay away from the lateral violence and the jealousy that, we didn't have as people 500 years ago.
Robert Pilot, Native Roots Radio, joining us here, along with Trigby Olson, Senior Advisor at the Lincoln Project. Trigby, you're the father. You've talked openly and proudly about it on this show of two daughters, you and your wife. And Robert, you're a dad. I am not. I have godsons, but no children on my own. So you guys have actually raised kids. Trigby, in your opinion, as a dad, but also someone who's traveled this world, to Robert's point, yes, I mean, I think all three of us on this program would agree that some sort of legislation is needed to help address gun violence. But how much of this just comes down to parenting? And then what about the single parents out there that are working their butts off just to pay the mortgage or keep food on the table? What responsibility is it for the rest of us to help them in providing a safe and positive environment for these kids?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, how your kids are kind of starts with, in part, how you raise them, and then in part, the circumstances in which they're in, which sometimes are related. I just think, you know, like when these kinds of things happen, there's a tendency for everybody to pay attention for a brief period of time,
Hmm.
and then it just sort of passes. And it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know what would compel somebody to go and do that. Um, I do think one of the things that, and I hate to be one of these guys because you sound like, sort of in my day, you're like grumpy old man from Saturday Night Live back in the day. But, I just think about Todd, you and I've had this conversation before. Back when I wanted to go hunting with my dad at 14, I had to go through hunter safety. And the class was taught by a guy named A.D. Halverson, who was a true American hero. And I don't mean like hero in sort of the way we think about him now. I mean, the guy fought in Iwo Jima, for God's sakes. Like, and you never knew it, never talked about it. But I will tell you this too. You learned you don't point a gun at somebody whether it's loaded or unloaded. You always check the gun to make sure that the breech is empty. Like, and I just don't know that same sense of respect. I mean, to this day, when I pick up a gun, I think about 80 and always click it open to check. Um, and I think that he probably would come down from heaven or wherever he's at and kick my posterior if I didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a crusty old guy too. But like, I just don't know that we have that same respect. Like we have all this false heroism and because I think some of it is our generation, the baby boomer generation, and subsequent generations. We think we've been tested, but we've never really been tested. I mean, people like A.D. Halverson held their best friend dying on an island at 19 years old for democracy.
Yeah.
It's interesting
So,
that you said that too, because I graduated from high school in 1979, and I look back at our yearbooks, and we had a gun range in our high school, our St. Paul Public School, in the basement, And that had to do with learning how to, like you said, Mr. Olson, is to how to handle yourself or handle this non-toy, this non-thing, and the power that people get when they just hold a gun, and those psychological things that happen and change their way of thinking. There's education, there's these things, but again, running around with and I believe he just had a shotgun and a long gun and a pistol, and emptied out everything and then killed himself.
Yeah.
Well, clearly he never had hunter safety, because he would have learned you don't any of those guns. You never point them at anybody, loaded
Right.
or unloaded, right? Like
We're,
clearly something deficient happened.
And let's go live now to Minnesota, to the Twin Cities, where Governor Tim Walz has just stepped up to the microphone for a special press conference.
A wish that any of these words would make what you're feeling now better, but it won't. A place that's founded on community, founded on service, founded on family. I'd like to give special thank you to the mayor and the team in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, Minnesota State Patrol, the BCA, so many agencies, our federal partners in the FBI, the first responders, and the heroic work that's happening now as we speak at multiple medical locations, including Hennepin County Medical Center, where most of our children were transported to receive the life-saving care. The thoughts and prayers and the hopes and the support that we need to give them in this moment, too, is critical. Speaking with all the people here, and grateful to our federal partners, Senator Klobuchar speaking early this morning, and receiving a call from President Trump, who was with his leadership team of the Attorney General and the Vice President, expressing their deep condolences amongst the horror that happened, and an offer to provide the support to the folks here in Minnesota of what's needed. So there's a lot of cameras here, and unfortunately, we've been through these types of things. They will be gone at some point. All of you, you have to do your jobs. But what happened here today will not be gone. Minnesotans will not step away. We'll stand with this community. We'll redouble ourselves to do the best we can to understand what we can do to prevent any parent from having to receive the calls they received today, from any school dedicated to children having to respond to a situation that, as we said, is unthinkable, but that's all too common, not just in Minnesota, but across this country. It's Minnesota's day today, and it's my strongest desire that no state, no community, no school ever experiences a day like this. So I ask the rest of the folks around the country who are watching, keep us in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep us in the thoughts for action. Keep us in the ideas that we can.
Of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz in the Twin Cities today, Minneapolis, on the heels of this mass shooting this morning in a Catholic school in Minneapolis. We'll come back with Robert Pilot, Tracy Olson to wrap up this hour. Stay with us. A special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
With us, Civic Media has a number of great jobs across the state.
Zombers, I don't know if you want to pause that or whatever you usually do. If there's anything we, here's the mayor again.
Yeah, the mayor. I'll pause it when the mayor starts talking.
Okay, cool.
Or I rewound it a little bit. I'll
Cool.
pause it when
Yeah,
it's.
thank you. And maybe take the mayor's remarks a bit. Mark, no, you should be able to hear me on the line. Mark, I didn't know they were going to have this special live report during this hour, so I'll try to get to your phone call, but forgive me if we have to take the mayor's remarks first.
The Cap Times Idea Fest is back with important local and national topics September 8th through the 13th in Madison. This year's guest speakers include Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, former Georgia lawmaker and
All right, I have it queued up to the mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers. Idea Fest will also feature some of the nation's leading journalists, from Maureen Dowd of the New York Times to Evan Osnos of the New Yorker, along with former Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson and Jennifer Rubin. Tickets at captimesmediafest.com.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money, because you're in charge. Today, you're going to pay down your credit card bill. But you decide when you'll pay it. Before the due date, so those interest charges don't get you. But you decide if you pay it in full. But you definitely should, because again, interest charges. With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then, you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government buy-in for the people. We recently told you about Tarrant County, Texas, which in June voted to approve blatantly racially gerrymandered county commissioner districts and was immediately sued under the Voting Rights Act. Now county commissioners have voted to reduce Election Day and early voting locations in the county. Last September, Republican County Judge Tim O'Hare voted to reject the recommended 50 early voting sites and push for cutting 8 voting sites on college campuses, saying it was not the county's job to get students or any other group to vote, according to reporting by the Fort Worth Report. The effort was defeated at the time. August 19th, O'Hare and 2 other Republicans, forming the majority on the commission, voted to reduce the number of polling places from 2023's 331 to 216, according to reporting by ProPublica.
Do we want to give out 988?
In a document presented
at
the
thank you very
August
much.
19th meeting, the college locations appeared to have been removed and early voting sites cut from 51 to 24. O'Hare said during the hearing that the cuts were for cost savings. ProPublica quoted one opponent who testified at the hearing as saying,
30 seconds.
"You're not
Thank
saving
you.
money, you're sacrificing democracy."
Welcome back to a special broadcast of the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 8 minutes now before the hour of 3 o'clock. Obviously, for obvious reasons, know what's worse today just wouldn't be appropriate. We're going to continue to follow this breaking news out of the Twin Cities and Minneapolis today in Minnesota, where Annunciation Catholic School mass shooting today. At least 17 people are injured. At least 2 children have been killed while they were praying in church. During the service, the gunman broke through the windows, shot through from the outside into the church through the windows after barricading at least 1 or 2 of the doors, and then took his own life in the back of the church or the parking lot. The details are not quite there yet. Helping us cover this today, Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio joins us from his home in the Twin Cities. Trygve Olsen, Senior Advisor at the Lincoln Project, joins us from outside of our nation's capital at Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, before we go back to you, this is courtesy of CBS News. We're about a minute behind here just because of the commercial break, but the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, has stepped up to this live this press conference. Once again, an update from Minneapolis. Here is the mayor, Jacob Fry of Minneapolis.
Thank you, Governor. Throughout the morning, we have seen this extraordinary Minneapolis family step up in thousands of different ways. People with strength, resilience, compassion, and love for the families that have been forever impacted by this heinous act. We want to make sure that we're doing everything possible for them right now, and I want to give a special thank you, and we are so grateful to all of the faculty and the teachers at Annunciation. The way that they acted during severe threat and danger was nothing short of heroic. This is a tragic and horrible event that should never occur, and it would have been all the more tragic and horrible had they not stepped in at times perhaps put themselves in danger to protect others. As horrible as this has been, it could have been far worse. I'm grateful for our law enforcement partners, our police officers in the Minneapolis Police Department and other law enforcement agencies well beyond that step up, that answered the call to make sure that they were running towards danger when so many of the rest of us would have run in the other direction. Thank you. We are so appreciative of your service. To Principal DeBoer and your whole team, the ethic that you have showed, the love that you've shown, it's flat out incredible. And at the same time, look, we need to be doing more than talking. It can't just be words. There needs to be action. And when we have seen school shooting after school shooting, when we have seen churches get shot up by horrible actors, I think the impetus has to be on all of us as leaders to do a whole lot more, to recognize that we've got more guns in this country than we have people. And it's on all of us to recognize the truth and the reality that we can't just say that this shouldn't happen again and then allow it to happen again and again beyond that. It's on all of us. And I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids. Kids died today. This needs to be about them. This needs to be wrapping our arms around these families with every bit of love that we can possibly show. And I know that our Minneapolis family and well beyond is prepared to do exactly that. And so my message to everyone out there is, again, these families are experiencing some acute pain right now. But don't just think of these as somebody else's kids. Think of your own.
That's the mayor of Minneapolis, Mayor Jacob Fry, wrapping up a press conference live there. Many thanks to CBS Radio News for that audio. Robert, you live in the Twin Cities. A minute from you and Trigby both, if I could, please. Just your final thoughts there. The mayor talking about, you've talked about it when tragedy struck the Native community in Minneapolis. People, there are helpers, as Mr. Rogers used to say. There are good people out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I really am thinking of the victims that went through this tragic that'll be with this tragedy, that'll be with them the rest of their lives. And I want to give a shout out to the people, the adults there. There was 2 who were shot, but also that how it could have been a lot worse, because it sounds like there was a lot of firepower going on. So I've been watching this all day, and reporters here locally are crying, and it's just hitting the whole Twin Cities and the state of Minnesota. We need to do something about this, and we need to do something about this yesterday. So Todd, thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. You can continue to join Robert every night from 8 until 9 on Native Roots Radio here on Civic Media. Trigby, a little less than a minute. Final thoughts from you.
I mean, it's just a sad day again, and it gets tiring that we have the same day. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, for those on the left who, like, the only way this gets solved is Americans across party lines working together to solve it. And so it is incumbent upon reasonable people on the right to have an honest conversation, but the other side has to not politicize it either. We need to be adults about it and So
A reminder is, thank you, Trigby. Reminder that if you or someone you know needs help, is facing a mental crisis, you can dial 988. Text or call 988. Robert Pilot, Native Roots Radio, Trigby Olson Lincoln Project. Thank you very much for taking your time to be here on this important day. Stay tuned, folks. ABC and CBS updates on weather, sports. We'll come back with hour 2 as well on the Civic Media Radio Network. Gentlemen, I can't thank you both enough for a very, very good and important conversation. That was very helpful. I appreciate you both.
Is there any way you can say I'm going to have Dr. Stately on
Yeah, of
from
course.
Native American Community Clinic, and he's a psychologist, but he's also head of the clinic. And then locally, Arvina Martin's going to be on tonight. The first Native American, you guys don't call it city council, but city council member in Madison. She's on my show regularly, and she'll be chiming in about today's what's happened today too.
So Arvina Martin, first Native council person in Madison.
Yes, and she's
All right. And
yes.
then also Dr. Stately is a psychologist, you said?
He's the CEO of Native American Community Clinic here in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities, but he's also a psychologist. If you don't mind, I guess I should have.
No, not at all. No, I'm taking notes because the old noggin doesn't retain things as well as it used to be.
I got a good memory, but it's short.
Right.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Olson.
yeah, it was nice meeting you too. Hey, I got to hop today, Todd.
Okay.
I don't get
Yeah,
to
I
play
get it.
this or that. I'll talk to
All
you
right.
later.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
again.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
For 92.7.
And Mark, if you want to hang on through the break here, we'll get
Shelley
your
Pittman
call here in
in
the
for
second hour.
Savannah Tomei Olson,
And
the
it
Madison Metro Sewerage District
sucks that it's under
has
these
more
circumstances,
details
but
over the
it's good to
release of
have him on.
millions
Oh,
of gallons
absolutely,
of
yeah. No,
untreated
it's
wastewater earlier
really
this
good.
month. The sewerage district says an overflow was first reported last Friday
Be right
by
back.
someone
All right,
who
thank you.
noticed bubbling water, and since then, MMSD's found a cause: a crack in a sewer pipe on the grounds of a wastewater treatment plant next to the Capitol Springs State Trail. The sewerage
Oh,
district
I
says
know,
the
I know.
overflow likely started
yeah,
2
that's
weeks
fine.
ago, and
We got
storms
it,
that
yeah.
week made the overflow more difficult to detect. They estimate 6 million gallons of untreated wastewater were released over 10 days, and they don't know how much flowed into Nine Springs Creek. Local public health officials and the state DNR have been notified and are monitoring. The crack in the pipe has been temporarily replaced. A permanent repair is coming in the next few months. As students head back to campus, Madison's downtown has 2 new defibrillators available in case of cardiac emergency. They're called SAVE stations, and the pair are available 24/7. They're now installed near the Historical Society on Library Mall and near the basketball courts at James Madison Park. They were unveiled yesterday and put there by a student-led group that works to prevent sudden cardiac arrest. The group formed a decade ago after the sudden death of a UW Oshkosh student who died after crossing the finish line of a half marathon at Summerfest. And in Milwaukee, a federal judge has denied a motion to dismiss charges against Judge Hannah Dugan. The ruling could be appealed, and that would put off a trial until next year. Another hearing in the case is scheduled for next week. For Savannah Tomei Olson, I'm Shelley Pittman, 92.7 WMDX News.
The return of The Miz. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Baseball tonight. The Brewers host the Diamondbacks for Game 3 of their 4-game series. The Crew with another dramatic win, 9-8 last night over Arizona. Jacob Mizorowski on the mound from Milwaukee. After a few shaky starts, he was back in form. 5 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, allowing 3 runs. The Miz asked if he had a little more confidence in his command.
I mean, it's the same. I don't think I changed the intent on any game, these last 2 or 3, but it feels good to feel like I'm back.
Manager Pat Murphy.
Thought Miz threw the ball well. This is a really good offensive team, as you guys have witnessed. You get ahead of them, it doesn't matter. But I thought we showed tremendous poise, resiliency.
NFL. The Packers reduced their roster to 53 players. Today, they're adding
Terry Barr
16
sent me a
players to
message,
their
says
practice
that
squad.
conversation
The team
was
also
terrific.
signed long
I
snapper
wanted something
Matt
like that
Forzik
and got it
to a
from you
3-year
guys. Thank you.
contract extension
Oh,
worth
thank you very
$4.8
much, Terry.
million.
Credit goes to
Sports on
our
Mike
great
Clemens.
guests.
Reach, engage, grow with Civic Media.
You still want the news up in there?
Yeah, let's keep it up there, please. That's fine.
And more mild today.
I will
Temperatures
keep
reaching the mid-70s.
that
Winds are much
local
calmer.
CBS
Cold
thing
front moves
going,
through tonight,
since that
bringing in
seems to
chances
be
for showers and maybe a
Are
rain with
you
thunder or
watching the
two.
TV
Light rain may linger early tomorrow morning.
or the local
Clearing clouds
online?
for the
Or,
afternoon.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I'm just curious what you watch.
I think it's probably the same video right now. There's a police officer talking, the chief.
Yeah, I was watching all the stuff at home and all this was breaking, and I don't know. I'm not sure whether it's the local CBS affiliate making the decision or national, but like NBC and ABC in Madison had special reports on, and CBS had the prices right. And when they were doing a special report online on CBS Plus or whatever that's called.
Weird. Well, the WCCO, CBS Minnesota.
Yeah. That's the local. Yeah,
they're covering
They're
this.
great.
So
Yeah.
that's what I found.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Out of all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums, the Mets are last with the most expensive hot dog at close to $8. So who's the top dog? Seattle is number one.
And I also have the AP live update that just occasionally shoots out more information.
And the survey
Anyway, about 30 seconds. Normal intro and everything now.
the game day experience with higher marks than most of all the other ballparks. Until next time, I'm Terry
For a special
Ball.
report, maybe because it's kind
On the next Nightlight, paranormal
Yeah, let's do the special report. I don't know. The regular music just sounds too jazzy.
I agree.
Matt Miller joins to talk new movies.
Right, here we go.
With
Thank
Pete
you.
Schwaba.
Welcome in, everyone, to hour number 2 of a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network, along with Mr. Aaron Zummers, our producer and engineer. It is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. Normally, we would start out the hour with it's a great day to be a Wisconsinite, but our hearts are hurting for our friends, our neighbors to the west in Minnesota, particularly the Twin Cities and Minneapolis today, as we continue to cover our special coverage of tragedy there. Here's what we know at this hour. The FBI is investigating a deadly shooting in Minnesota during a Catholic school mass as, quote, an act of domestic terrorism and hate crimes targeting Catholics, unquote, according to the agency's director, Kash Patel. At least 2 children were killed, 17 people were injured during the mass to mark the first week of class at Annunciation Catholic School. Officials say the shooter fired through the windows, from the outside, through the windows, at people sitting in the pews, reports of some of whom were on kneelers in prayer. Authorities are currently holding a news conference and brought you some of that earlier. Governor Tim Walz, also the mayor, Jacob Fry, talking about the helpers, that this could have been worse, according to the mayor, had it not been for the leadership of the first responders, the police, the school officials, the principals in the sanctuary at the time. Also reports that the shooter barricaded at least 2 of the doors with 2x4s so that no one could get out. The FBI has identified the shooter, who is dead. According to police, as a result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in either the back of the church or the parking lot. That is still to be determined. Governor Tim Walz said the shooting at Annunciation Catholic School will have a lasting impact on the community after the news coverage dies down. Quote from the governor, quote, a lot of cameras here, and unfortunately, we've been through these types of things. They will be gone at some point. All of you have to do your jobs. But what happened here today will not be gone. Minnesotans will not step away. We'll stand with this community, unquote, Governor Tim Walz. The shooter involved in today's fatal accident used a legally purchased rifle, shotgun, and pistol to carry out the attack, according to Minnesota Police Chief Brian O'Hara. The shooter is believed to have acted alone when they opened fire at Annunciation Catholic School. Quote, there is no indication of other suspects directly involved in carrying out this attack, unquote, according to Police Chief O'Hara. Also, the chief said that the shooter had no prior criminal history. The shooter took their own life in the rear of the church. Quote, that coward has been identified. A 23-year-old, unquote. Has no prior criminal history, according to police. Very tough day for a lot of folks. Very tough day. And I said, and many thanks to Pat Kreitlow, host of Mornings of Pat Kreitlow, and also to Travi Olson, senior advisor of the Lincoln Project, and most especially to Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio, which can be heard every evening from 8 until 9 on Civic Media, for taking time to be on the show today in the first hour. Robert, of course, lives in Minneapolis. And a programming reminder, please tune in every night, but especially tonight to Native Roots Radio from 8 until 9. Robert told us before he left here during the break, two very special guests on Native Roots Radio tonight. The CEO of Native American Group, he's also a psychiatrist, Dr. Stanley, is going to be on the show tonight. And it's Native American Clinic, CEO of Native American Clinic in the Twin Cities, Dr. Stanley, who is a psychiatrist. And also Arvina Martin, who is the first Native American woman to be elected to the city council here in the city of Madison. So they'll be discussing that as well on continuing coverage. And particularly poignant that Robert Pilot lives in Minneapolis and again, unfortunately, has covered this in the Native American community. There's been an outbreak. I hope that's not overstating it or hyperbole, but an increase, maybe that's more accurate, an increase of native on native gun violence in the Twin Cities. And Robert has been covering that and speaking very honestly about that. And now here it is. And Robert pointed out there was another shooting last night in Minneapolis, or at least in the Twin Cities area, where I think 3 or 4 people were injured in that. And that probably would have been the top story, except for what happened here today. Zommers, I'm kind of watching a lot of things here. Was that, I know you're giving me the high sign there. Is that what you're about the programming notes there?
No, there was some other information that the authorities found online. I put it in the show chat.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll check on that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Zommers. As you can understand, a fluid situation. Our great producer, Aaron Zommers, according to CBS and the Associated Press, the shooter had a YouTube video manifesto set to publish after the shooting. It has been since taken down from public view as being reviewed by authorities.
And yeah, I hope they do not republish it, because that's the last thing we need is more notoriety for the shooter.
I agree. I think it's important. I know people have different feelings about naming the shooters, so we'll refrain from that. But I do think it's important that we know that it's a male, 23 years old, and now apparently there's hate speech going on. Again, I want to be very careful and not speculate what that means at this point until these things are reported. Zomer and I were talking during the break. Great CBS affiliate, WCCO television and radio station, covering this, doing a great job up there. Also, the Minnesota Tribune, Star Tribune, great newspaper, covering this. And this really shows the critical importance to local journalism. Not to say that the CNNs and the MSNBCs and the CBSs, NBCs aren't important. But so often in times like this, it's the Minnesota Star Tribune, it's WCCO, the reporters who live in these communities that can give us the clearest, most accurate picture. So we appreciate all of that reporting as well. Know what's worse today. Just don't feel it would be appropriate. Not in that kind of mood today. We'll talk maybe a little bit later on in this hour. Brewers in action tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. 6:05 broadcast start tonight. Got a nice win last night. But again, those sorts of things just don't seem super important on a day like today. If you want to call in, give your feelings on this, we'd love to hear from you. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Also, feel free to text us on the text line of the Civic Media app. Going to be reading some of those, or text us on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter handles as well. Let's go to the phone lines. Mark from Pertisac. Mark, thanks for being so very patient. Hopefully you understand. We want to get out some of this press conference, that sort of thing, and trying to deal in facts on a day like today, but at the same time, just trying to find our way forward. So, Mark, thanks for holding. What do you want to say?
Yeah, not a problem, Todd. And part of it is, first off, I was just disturbed to hear that the hate that apparently is going out against the trans community. Now, how the heck that even got brought into this is beyond me. But I do have some suspicions. But one thing that really bothers me is the proliferation of this style of firearm out there. Now they've got them all tricked out. Now you can use AR-15s, style weapons, and the .223 ammunition for whitetail hunting now here in Wisconsin. And I've noticed over now decades, where in the past it used to be that kind of weapon was not used for hunting. I mean, it simply was not. And now it is just, you got them all tricked out now, so you can, that's the go-to weapon for hog hunting and wherever, night hunting for hogs. And now you can get a silencer for just about anything you want to get a silencer for. And it just is disturbing to me as a hunter who sees this going on with the proliferation of that type of weapon going out there and getting popularized. I just don't get the attraction. And maybe if I was 20 years old again, and I'd be all attracted to that, but it just is beyond me why that we can't get some sensible legislation out there and try to curtail some of this, because it just is. It wouldn't hurt me at all, because I'm, that my primary weapon when I'm pheasant hunting now is a double barrel 20 gauge, and when I see somebody else out on the trail, I break open the action so I can, that it's a lot safer than as Triggerview was saying. I mean,
and Mark, I mean, I'm a hunter as well. Own firearms, a 30-06 for deer hunting, a 22, I own a pistol, a 12 gauge shotgun for turkey and pheasant hunting. I don't want an AR-15. I don't know why. I mean, I wouldn't want to deer hunt with anybody with an AR-15. I'll tell you that much. But to the point here that's coming out, according to Minneapolis police, so far, they are reporting, according to the police department, that the weapons used in today's shooting in Minneapolis were obtained legally. Now, we don't know who did that or how exactly. I want to be very careful about speculation. And look, I'm all for reasonable gun reform as well. Keller Royce here in Madison, new legislation today that would ban concealed carry on college and university campuses. I got no problem with that. But also where I mean, you can't necessarily, and I want people to be very careful. I'm not against reasonable gun reform legislation. I'm for it. But to what you were saying, Mark, to what's here being heard from police officials in Minneapolis, in this particular case, I don't know that legislation would have stopped today's tragedy. At some point, this becomes, and the mental health phrase gets used way, way, way too much, but we have to take this seriously. And we have to, as a community, be looking after those that we love and care about, don't we?
We certainly don't. It sounds, what I've seen, I was just looking at it briefly because I can't only have so much I can take of this all at once.
Yeah.
But it sounds like this guy was kind of into the whole neo-Nazi philosophy and the whole hatred thing. But look what we have at the very top of our country right now, a guy who spews hate, that just freely. I mean, and it is just, and is there a trickle-down effect there? I mean, I'm not blaming, the president at this point in time, but I'm just saying that when you have the top person in the country spewing hatred constantly, and it's become epidemic in this country, this kind of hate speech, and it just is.
Well, that's a really good point, Mark, and an important one. I appreciate you bringing it up, and we can discuss that as this half hour progresses. But I'll look for it over the break here. There is a Republican candidate for Congress in Texas who lit the Muslim holy book on fire in her political ad and declared that Jesus Christ is Lord and we're coming after Muslims. Now, again, I want to be really careful on this show, and I don't want to lead the charge. I don't want callers to be, we're not going to go after religions here. But to Mark's point, when we have people in leadership positions who are going after other religions, that puts thoughts in people's head who are already not stable. Come back, continue this important discussion. Your calls, 855-752-4842 is the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Madison's real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Hey, Gordy. How you doing?
Oh, Arthur, great. Great to see you. What are you doing in the studio?
Well, I need to talk to you about doing a commercial.
Okay. Well, to get a commercial on the air here, you just go down to the sales department. It's right next to the bathroom.
I don't think you understand.
Oh, I understand plenty. You salespeople drink a lot of coffee. That's why the bathroom's right there.
Right, but I need to have you make a commercial about commercials.
Wait. A commercial about a commercial? I don't follow.
I want to tell potential business owners out there how to contact me to get a commercial on WMDX.
Okay, I get it. Okay, let's come up with something. Let's see. Business folks can contact you directly, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
what's the email, huh?
Okay, so it's sales@WMDXradio.com.
Oh, wait, run that by me again.
Sales@WMDX.
On a completely unrelated and more cheery note, tonight's guest at the beginning of Nightlight with Pete Schwaba is Todd Michaels.
Advertise
Oh,
on
fantastic.
WMDX Radio. Email Arthur, sales@WMDXradio.com.
Craft cocktails, live events, a
Talk
playground
about
for the
his
kids, and
paranormal
self-serve
investigations
instant ramen bar and drag bingo.
and
It's all
about
at
being
Downtown's
co-host
Distilling
of
in Cottage
Real Ghost
Grove.
Stories
It's not
Online.
your average tasting
Very
brew.
cool.
Pet friendly, family friendly, flavor packed. Visit downdrinks.com or stop by today.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. Look, it's probably too early to have a conversation about the 2026 race for governor in Wisconsin, but our readers spoke and they asked for our take on this, so we delivered an extensive breakdown of who is running and who might be running in both the Democratic and Republican primaries for the first open race for governor in 16 years. In that breakdown, I identified the top 4 potential contenders to be the candidate for the Democratic Party. They are Attorney General Josh Kaul, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, and State Senator Kelda Royce. There are more candidates we're monitoring, too. This primary will be a
30
remarkable
seconds. Thank you.
opportunity for voters to choose the path forward for the party. But on the Republican side, it's less about the voters and more about the endorsement of one man.
Welcome back to a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show as we continue the tragic shooting in Minneapolis today in Minnesota. 22 now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Aaron Zommers on the board. Appreciate all of your calls, all of your texts. Hang on the line. We'll get to you here. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Talking before the break there to Mark, and again, I would be very, very careful because there are 17 people at least injured. 2 that we know have died in this tragedy. The shooter, a 22, 23-year-old young man, killed himself after committing the violence. And we are still waiting for causes. We have several on our live screens here. Zomer and I are monitoring several different sources. We still don't know. Police officials have not said a specific reason or cause. Is that correct, Zomers, to this point?
Yes, but I do have some other information.
Sure.
The police chief, according to the Associated Press, just said that all of the injured victims, including all the children, are expected to survive at this point. So
Well, thank God.
That's some heartening news.
That's very good news indeed. That Police Chief Brian O'Hara of Minneapolis reporting that all remaining victims are expected to survive. So finally some good news on a very tragic day. But want to be careful, very, very careful about this. But to Mark's point earlier, and I looked it up and found this, I was going to talk about this actually yesterday, but like, no, I'm just not going to give this person credence. But now it becomes pertinent, unfortunately. And this are several sources. You can find this. This is at theindependent.com. There has been a furious reaction to an anti-Islamic campaign ad posted by a far-right MAGA congressional candidate in which she sets fire to the Quran with a flamethrower. Valentina Gomez, running for Texas's 31st district, is a Republican. She shared the extreme video on X as a part of her vow to, quote, end Islam, unquote, in the Lone Star State. She's also been using hateful rhetoric against Muslims, the LGBTQ community, black people, and immigrants in an attempt to gain notoriety to further a flailing attempt at a political career, which has so far gone nowhere. And people say, well, look, she's a right-wing nut job. Why give her? I get it. But in today's world, I'm holding up my iPhone for those watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. That's what binds so many of these extremists together now. Now, I've talked about it on this show before. I used to go when I was a Republican. I left the party in 2011. I go to state conventions for Wisconsin Republican Party. And there were always about anywhere from a dozen to 25 whack jobs who would be off at a corner. And they'd have crazy signs, and everybody else at the convention would snicker at them and make fun of them. But ever since the advent of the internet, maybe not the advent, but the proliferation, say 2000 forward, all these folks are joined together by the internet, and they feed off of each other. And now the right-wing wackadoodle jobs can mainstream themselves on these videos. And what's really dangerous is then you have extremists or people who might not necessarily be religious extremists, but be of a certain religion and have their own mental health issues. They see something like this. And suddenly now they're going to go out and commit a horrific act in response to something that happened a half a country away. Again, I'm not saying this is what happened in this specific case, but this is how we have to be mindful of what we consume. We have to be mindful of what our kids are consuming. 855-752-4842. Jack in Merrimack. Jack, thanks for calling as always. What say you?
Thank you. Yeah. First of all, I'm a gun owner. I own target pistols, and I find recreational target shooting interesting and fun. I'm not totally anti-gun. However, I wonder what the Supreme Court could possibly be thinking of when they look at the Second Amendment that says a well-regulated militia, and then they throw out regulations and they say you don't have to be part of a legal militia to own any number of guns. I mean, that's just crazy. Now, the second thing I want to say is this. The Australians, back around in the 90s sometime, basically banned these military-style weapons. And, it cost the politician that originated the legislation, it cost him his job. But as far as I know, they haven't had a multiple shooting massacre since. Now, that probably wouldn't have happened in this case because there weren't any of those type of weapons involved from what I've heard.
Correct.
But it's a start. It's a start. We can do this, and we know what works. our politicians, they're so enamored of their job, they just got to keep that power that they're not willing to do that sort of thing. That's what really, really angers me.
Appreciate the call, Jack. Thank you so much, Jack in Merrimack. Yeah, I'm a gun owner too. Believe in guns for hunting, for protecting yourself, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I go back to the bipartisan ban on assault weapons back in the 90s that my former boss, Republican Scott Klug of Wisconsin, voted in favor of. To Jack's point, that's a start. But also, I think it's taking care of each other. We'll discuss it when we come back. Stay tuned. Farm News is next. Your calls as well on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. Come work with us.
Cam, if you want to hang around, we'll take you right after we come back here.
At civicmedia.us/careers.
Is Royalty Living in Tomo, Wisconsin. I'm Kylie Allen, and you're listening to the Midwest Farm Report this afternoon. Stick around to hear Josie Bailey's path to becoming the National Guernsey Queen.
Hey, got yield? The Wisconsin Soybean Association is excited to announce the 2025 Wisconsin Soybean Yield Contest, highlighting the innovative production practices of Wisconsin soybean growers. The Yield Contest celebrates soybean growers across the state and their dedication to improving their operations. 2 winners will be selected from 4 geographical divisions, with additional awards available. Entry forms must be postmarked by August 31st, so don't wait. For more information, visit wisoybean.org.
Coming from a Holstein operation, Josie Bailey knew she loved the dairy industry. However, it wasn't until after she helped a friend at the state fair that she fell in love with Guernseys. Now, Josie makes careful breeding decisions to advance her very own herd of Guernsey cattle.
Each of my Guernseys are very different, whether it comes to age or even just how they're built. I really like to go on an individual basis, so as you know, Guernseys sometimes do have leg issues. That's kind of a breed characteristic where they can be sickled or have hocks issues and all of that. So a few of my older Guernseys do have that. So I like to look at the traits when it comes to their legs and pasture and just to know what I'm going to be working with, as I do want to improve the breed every time I do breed the animal. So my Guernseys that are weaker in the leg area, I look to breed them with a sire that is stronger in that area. Or if my Guernsey, doesn't produce as much milk as I would like, then I go and look at the genomics.
Working to improve a breed that she holds so close to her heart, one mating at a time. That was Josie Bailey, the National Guernsey Queen, along with us.
The National
Guernsey don't touch
Queen.
that radio dial. I'll have a look at your closing markets right after this.
Unique farming operations need unique financial solutions. Egg Country Farm Credit Services offers customized financing that fits any size farm, ranch, or agribusiness. The next time you're in the market for more land, equipment, facilities, or maybe even an operating loan, contact the team at Egg Country. They know agriculture and will work for you. Egg Country. Focused on ag, focused on you. Egg Country is an equal opportunity lender.
On the close from Chicago, cash corn closed down 5 at $3.82.5. New crop corn closed down 3.5 at $4.06. Cash soybeans closed down 2 at $10.47.5. New crop soybeans closed down 1.5 at $10.27. September wheat closed down 7.25 at $5.02.25. Taking a look at dairy, September Class 3 milk closed down 43 cents at $18.20, and October Class 3 milk closed down 55 cents at $17.81. 40-pound block cheese closed down 5 at $1.76, and AA butter closed down 13.5 at $2.05. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Kylie Allen.
Join the family. Civic Media has a number of great jobs across the state open now at civicmedia.us/careers.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. Mostly cloudy tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms. Low mid-50s. Mostly sunny and pleasant for tomorrow, high low 70s. Staying dry and pleasant Friday through Monday, the holiday weekend. Highs in the 70s. It's 71 right now.
Hi, my name is Chuck Collins. I'm the great-grandson of the meatpacker Oscar Mayer and a member of the Patriotic Millionaires. I gave away my inheritance in my 20s, and I spent my career studying inequality in America. Do you know that the U.S. is more unequal today than we have been in 100 years? Did you know that in a few years we will have our first
The Minneapolis
trillionaire,
school
while
shooter
about
wrote the
40% of
name
Americans working
of the
full-time don't
LSC
make enough to
shooter
support
here in
themselves,
Madison
much
on the
less a
gun.
family? Did you ever wonder if maybe, just maybe,
That's
these two things might be connected? Well, a recent study by
Not
the
good.
RAND Corporation estimates that in the last 50 years, about 80 trillion was redistributed from the bottom 90% to the top 1%.
30 seconds.
So what, if anything, should we do about that? Patriotic millionaires have
Welcome back, everyone, to a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 35 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. Aaron Zommer's on the board. Appreciate all of his work today. Special coverage of the mass shooting that happened just to our west in Minnesota this morning. An Annunciation Catholic school this morning where at least 17 people are known to have been injured. 2 are reported dead. And also the shooter, who is a 23-year-old male, died by suicide either in the back of the church or at the parking lot. According to Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, all remaining victims currently in the hospital at this hour are expected to survive. CNN now reporting that the children shot and or killed range in the age of 6 to 15 years old. They were in the pews of the church, some on their knees, on the kneelers, praying when the when the shooter reportedly put 2x4s in at least some of the church doors so they could not be opened from the inside, broke through the stained glass windows, and murdered the victims in their church pews while shooting from the outside into the church. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been at the scene press conference. We carried a bit of that earlier, along with the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, also there. Motive not yet known, and I want to be very, very careful about this. I don't want to speculate on this program. We're not here to insinuate things or make assumptions that we don't know to be true. That's really dangerous and, in my opinion, terrible reporting and terrible radio, because people are dead. Families are grieving today. And what we need are clear heads and minds that deal in fact. And our job is to bring you those facts as we know them and to have thoughtful discussions as we work through this. If you'd like to call in, 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. We'll be going through some of those. Also, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Feel free to leave your comments there. I want to get into a little bit more this half hour, how this kind of ties in, unfortunately, with new reporting by Kelly Meyerhofer at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. We covered this earlier this year, unfortunately, in southwest Wisconsin at my alma mater, UW-Platteville, where there was a young woman who killed another young woman with a handgun in a dorm. And really some disturbing new reporting from Kelly Meyerhofer on that. And also, if we have time, Governor Tony Evers has requested a disaster declaration from President Trump after a historic Milwaukee area flooding. We'll see if we have time for that. Again, I think it's important to point out that according to police, the weapons that were used in today's mass shooting in Minneapolis, as well as the weapon used at UW-Platteville, were obtained legally with proper permits. The shooter at Platteville earlier this year had a concealed carry permit, went through the training. And as a firearm owner myself for hunting and self-protection, I acknowledge the need for and I support reasonable gun reform like red flag laws, waiting periods, assault weapons bans. But as it appears today, what happened in Minneapolis and also what happened in Platteville, that would not have been prevented by legislation. So I think legislation in and of itself is not going to fully address this crisis that is unfortunately unique to America. It goes deeper than that, in my opinion. And a reminder, if you or somebody that you know is struggling and needs to talk to someone, dial or text 988. 988. Someone is standing by to talk to you at all times. This is also disturbing new reporting, according to Channel 3000, CBS affiliate Channel 3 here in Madison. The person who authorities say opened fire at the Minneapolis Catholic school today had the last name of the Abundant Life Christian shooter written on the gun. Of course, that tragedy happened here in Madison just last December, less than a year ago. We anchored the special coverage of that. The video, according to CBS, originally uploaded to YouTube, appears to depict today's shooter showing off his weapons, which are covered in writing. One of the guns appears to have the name Rupnow written on it. The video has since been deleted from YouTube. CBS News confirmed the verified video. It is unclear if the guns seen in the video were the ones used today. Law enforcement also confirmed to CBS News in Minneapolis, WCCO, the great affiliate there, that today's shooter posted the video with a manifesto, which has also since been deleted by authorities. Natalie Rupnow opened fire at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison on December 16th of last year, killing 2 people and injuring 6 more. Both today's shooter and the one here in Madison died of self-inflicted gunshots. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Cam in Appleton, thanks for your patience to holding on, Cam, and listening. What say you?
Thank you for taking my call, Todd. I have watched over, I would say, a few hundred hours of information, like actual information, going in depth, breaking down their from birth to their death of shooters in our country, actually all around the world too, but primarily the U.S. because of our unique position in the world with the problems that we have. And I would advise folks that when you're seeing any of the stuff that's written on the weapons from the shooter, to ignore it in large. The only one that probably means anything, and this isn't speculation necessarily, it's fact, because I've seen the video of the manifesto, and I'm not reporting on that. I'm just saying that it lines up with what people in the past have done at other school shootings, because a lot of the times they reference people like they're heroes from Columbine or they're heroes from the Wisconsin shooting. Natalie specifically gets referenced quite a bit in a lot of the more recent ones, which is very odd. But they go to themselves high scores, and it's like a mix of people that are incels with people that are pretty anti-atheist or anti-God. In this case, this person was anti-God. Their mom had retired from the school that they went and shot up previously, and so that at least establishes some kind of a connection to that school. But they only picked that one because they said that they just wanted to get the highest score possible against people that had less of a chance of fighting back.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate the call, Cam. Thank you very much. And again, here's what we know at this hour, according to CNN. Pardon me, just hit the wrong button there. There we go. Here's what they're reporting at this hour. The FBI identified the shooter, a 23-year-old male. Agency is investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. against Catholics, unquote, according to FBI Director Kash Patel. However, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara was asked at a news conference if the shooting was a hate crime, and he said officials don't have a motive yet to investigate it as a hate crime. The shooter today had no prior criminal history. He was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, which Chief O'Hara in Minneapolis said were purchased recently and legally. The police chief said it's believed that the shooter acted alone. The shooter died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the rear of the church, according to the police chief. CNN is reporting at this hour that the 23-year-old shooter graduated from Annunciation Catholic's grade school in 2017, according to a yearbook obtained by CNN. And as Cam stated, it has now been confirmed by CNN's reporting that the shooter's mother had previously worked at the school from 2016 through 2021, according to social media posts. It's a good example of not coming to conclusions too early. And I'm trying to be as deferential as I possibly can and not make today political. But it's disturbing, to say the least, when the FBI director immediately jumps into saying this is a targeted domestic terrorism crime, but the local police chief is saying, wait, we don't have that confirmed yet. I prefer to err on the side of caution because it does no good for this program or any other program or media to gin people up until we know facts from law enforcement on the ground. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Charles, listening on WAUK in Milwaukee. Charles, thanks for calling. About 2 minutes. What say you?
Hey, Todd. So I thought the same thing when you mentioned earlier, or maybe there was a news break that Kash Patel had said that, it was a hate crime against Catholics. I'm thinking, man, how did they find that out that quickly? So that kind of disturbed me, for them to take it there. But my bigger thing is something needs to be done. Whether we're talking about kids being killed in bigger cities from gun violence or accidental deaths that occurred from kids getting a hold of a loaded gun in the house, to kids being killed at school, at schools or at events. I'm not even talking about adults, but just for the kids' sake, at what point do people, I don't care what side of the aisle you fall on, say, hey, we have to care more about kids than we do about guns? Because if this person wouldn't have had a gun, those kids would probably be at home or on their way home from school now.
Yeah.
And something has to be done. I know people always say, well, thoughts and prayers. Well, thoughts and prayers don't go far when you have a family right now that's trying to figure out funeral arrangements for their loved ones that have been taken away by hot lead from somebody's gun.
Yeah.
Some has to give, and I don't know if it will. I was just telling my mom today, I think some of these people who are so strong about the guns, if their loved ones were killed, I still think they would say, well, it's their Second Amendment right to have weapons. I mean, I'm not a gun person. I never have been. I never allowed people to buy my kids water guns when they were growing up. But something about this country and guns, you don't see this anywhere else in the world.
Right.
Where you see people being gunned down daily, weekly, whether it's a mass shooting or somebody got mad and pulled out the gun and shot the other person because they said something that they didn't like, or
Charles,
road rage incident.
I appreciate the calls. Up against the clock, my friend, but thank you very much. Come back. We'll wrap up the show, tell you the latest here, what we know about today's tragedy in Minnesota. It's the Allbaugh Show, a special edition on the Civic Media Radio Network.
sports on air and streaming on the Civic
My
Media
initial
app.
thought is that
This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Bang Your Drum is still appropriate because it is looking up like whatever you believe in, whatever you're, but up to you, obviously. Or maybe on the way out.
Plus, save even more when you upgrade to an adjustable base. At Burlow, all of our mattresses are locally crafted.
We can just use the same
by
if
our
you want.
lifetime comfort guarantee. So hurry in and get savings on top of
I don't know.
savings
I think I just feel like doing the same. Just keep keep with the cello. I just think it's the vibe right now we need
This
to
is Chad
have.
Spade.
Well,
Are
thank
you
you.
thinking about improving your home? At Chad's Design Build, we're proud to offer remodeling done well with love. And our commitments to you and your home convey that love and spell our name. The Chad's experience is structured to provide excellent communication, honesty, accuracy, detailed proposals, and satisfied customers. We're also committed to making your home comfortable, healthy, attractive, durable, and sustainable. If you want a quality remodel and a quality remodeling experience, go to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more.
The Cap Times Idea Fest is back with important local and national topics September 8th through the 13th in Madison. This year's guest speakers include Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, former Georgia lawmaker and voting rights activist Stacey Abrams, and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers. Idea Fest will also feature some of the nation's leading journalists, from Maureen Dowd of the New York Times to Evan Osnos of the New Yorker, along with former Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson and Jennifer Rubin. Tickets at captimesmediafest.com.
The Dane County Humane Society offers programs for humans of all ages.
Oh, wow.
For kids, there's Camp Paw Print, Scout Workshops, After Dark, and the new Camp Wild Side. They also offer field trips, birthday parties, service days, and their new Paws and Pages reading program. Learn more at giveshelter.org/education.
America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. From fighting wildfires with air support, helping civilians in flooded neighborhoods, to delivering food and supplies to those who have lost everything, the Army National Guard always responds when disaster strikes. The Army National Guard also trains to be ever vigilant against threats, foreign and domestic. They protect our skies with missile defense weaponry. They secure our information, communications, and infrastructure with cybersecurity. And they protect us against chemical, biological, and radiological hazards with the civilian support team. The Army National Guard also stands ready to deploy and provide support for conflicts or humanitarian missions abroad. Join the Army National Guard and be there to respond, protect, and support your
Welcome back to a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show. We continue to cover the breaking news, the tragedy in Minneapolis today, in Minnesota, where now, according to authorities, by the way, it's 8 minutes before the hour of 4 o'clock at the top of the hour, ABC, CBS News continue to have national updates on this tragedy in Minnesota. Check of weather. Mike Clemens with sports. The Brewers are back in action tonight on some of our stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Park Falls, and Hayward. Brewers taking on the Diamondbacks tonight at 6:05 for the pregame show on those stations. First pitch around 6:35 later on tonight. Also, the Wisconsin Badger football team kicking off their season opener from Camp Randall tomorrow. We'll see what the evening brings tonight and into tomorrow, but we plan on focusing a little bit on that tomorrow, because many of our civic media stations cover the Badgers as well. But right now, at this very moment, and then after the news, weather, and sports, Maggie Dawn from 4 until 6. My guess is that Maggie will continue to cover this breaking news as well. So join Maggie Dawn from 4 until 6. Pete Schwaba is back tonight in the host chair with Nightlight. Little break for everything. And our old friend Todd Michaels, I understand, is a guest talking about the paranormal as well. So a chance just to kind of unplug from the tragedy. Here's what we know at this hour. A shooter fired through the windows of a Catholic church in Minnesota today, killing 2 children, wounding at least 17 others, who are marking the first week of class at Annunciation Catholic School. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara said police don't yet, quote, have a motive, unquote, for the shooting. The FBI identified the shooter, who is dead, as a male, 23 years old, who graduated from the school in 2017, according to a yearbook obtained by CBS. Annunciation Catholic Church is well known in the neighborhood as a very community-oriented church, according to U.S. Senator Tina Smith, who lives several miles away. Smith referenced what the school's principal said during a news conference about taking action and said that it was emblematic of the community of, quote, putting your faith into action, unquote. The weapon, rifle, shotgun, pistol used to carry out the attacks were purchased illegally, O'Hara said. The police chief said they were used and purchased recently. According to the police chief, there was apparently a manifesto put up on YouTube, which has since been taken down. The chief said it included some disturbing writings, unquote. The victims range in age from, the victims, the 2 that are dead, an 8 and 10-year-old who are praying in the pews of the church when they were murdered. Other ages range from 6 until 15 years old that were injured by gunfire. 3 other people in their 80s were also shot. According to authorities, the victims who are hurt are experiencing, quote-unquote, a range of injuries. But according to Chief O'Hara, all are expected to survive. Hope everybody can take some time to pause, reflect, hug the ones you know, tell them that you love them, and remember all the first responders. As the governor and the mayor said today, the people who rushed into danger. And according to the governor and the mayor, most likely saved several others from being killed. That's the important news to take away, I guess, today, is that there are those firefighters and first responders and EMS and police officers who do immeasurable good in our community and commit their lives so at the worst of times of other people's lives, they are at their best. I don't know what the answer is, guys. I didn't come on the air today to give you the answer. I just hope to have a thoughtful discussion. Because at times like these, I think we just need to pause and reflect. And yes, as a gun owner, as someone who hunts, I'm all for reasonable gun reform, of waiting periods, red flag laws, and assault weapons bans. But as authorities said today, most likely legislation would not have stopped this tragedy. I think it goes well beyond that, into connecting with people. We didn't even really get to this great story. I encourage you to go to MilwaukeeJournalSentinel.com, Kelly Meyerhofer, on the insight on this shooter at UW-Platteville, the murder-suicide. This young woman was in the education program. She failed her student teaching part. They said, you're not well enough. That's putting words in their mouths. You're not able to do a good job as a teacher. She wasn't good enough to teach kids. Yet she was approved for a concealed carry permit and had a firearm. She was sleeping with all the lights on in her dorm room. She was asking people, if you wanted to kill someone, how would you do it? If you're going to rob a bank, where would you go? I'm not blaming UW-Platteville entirely for this tragedy. But the point is, and I point this at myself, when we see people, particularly young people, who are withdrawn, who don't want to be touched or hugged by family members, who don't want to be vocal in any way who are obsessed with screens and sit in a corner or dark rooms or do just odd things. We all, myself included, need to ask compassionate questions. How are you doing? What can I do for you? What's going on? That doesn't take legislation, folks. That takes compassion and a heart and humanity. And I know I could do better at that. Appreciate Pat Kreitlow, Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Appreciate Trygve Olsen, Senior Advisor at the Lincoln Project, and Native Roots Radio host Robert Pilot. Join Robert tonight from 8 to 9. A really important show. He's going to continue this coverage live from Minneapolis. Stay tuned. Maggie Dawn is next. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.